Okie dokie. Once again, well, this is actually the structure. You have the structure of government, which is once again within the Supreme Court. You have letter of the law, spirit of the law, precedent of the law. Then you have the creators of the law, we the people, tell the executive to execute the laws. Now, how they execute the laws depends on the party and their thing, and however what they're trying to get. The right is considered that of the nobility, and the left is considered that of the common. Unfortunately, right now, you have workers who should be on the left telling the left to go screw itself while asking for the things that the left is giving it. This is kind of the same thing that happened in Afghanistan, where we did good things, good works, but they were attributed to the Taliban. It's the same kind of silliness. But this is not what I'm in here. Oh, yeah. And then we also have to go over. In here we have, let me see here. Duplicate. Because this is now also the masculine. This is all the regular African Americans who have been traumatized by, the bigots up here and the racist. And don't know that it was being done to them on purpose. Then you have your psychopaths. So you have your females who've been attacked by the females here, your gay men who here, and then your quote straight men here, most of which they've been incarcerated and they're psychopathic or sociopathic. And there was something I was walking. There's a rhythm state that I always thought was kind of a little strange. The SA or not so much just all who's this is just like how Christians in prison and walk. I'm sitting there going to the other day. I was walking and to look at there's a little coffee shop to go to. Yeah, they were closed, but I'm sitting there walking, and this dude, you could definitely tell his rhythm. He had gotten out of prison, whatever, and he does a mimic. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, first off, it pissed me off. I'm like, look, motherfucker. Oops, pardon the language. I'm trying to clean this up. Um, the but I didn't say anything. It's just it took him a second to realize because I got down to the coffee shop. It wasn't open. Turned around, and for some reason they were coming back. I guess they were going to the bail bonds or whatever the heck. But I had to let it was a little more of like what the who the hell, yeah. But then as I stopped and started thinking about this, I'm like, okay, you've taken a large majority African American male population through the crime bill, put them into prison. So now that their culture is imprisoned, and now in prison, it's just the law of the jungle. It's all about racism, apparently. You got to stick with your race or whatever. But in there is also just basic psychopathy and sociopathy, and there ain't any chicks. And seeing these rhythms play out now, when they're free, they have to overcompensate for what masculinity was lost while they were in prison, and then that flows out into what the gangster culture and everything else. But that's part of where I'm heading as far as that. But they're not my main concern, nor do I really give a shit. Now we have to. This is once again the inflation. We got to get that 15%. We can't lose that 15% minimum tax rate because when taxes first came out, it was 10% and only at the rich. And it was funny. It was a mark of superiority that I had to. I was so rich I had to pay taxes. Now that's flipped around. Isn't it hilarious? Where all of the income comes from the lower population working their butts off and then getting screwed and getting nothing. The another thing that was going on with the Bernie with the Build Back Better plan is Manchin's talking about, well, we can't do this, can't do that, can't do. My main two things, as I've stated, is community college. Even though you raise Pell Grants, community if a school is still is maintaining its accreditation secular accreditation, because Betsy DeVos was trying to get everyone trying to create her Calvinist madrasas and make the average person pay for it. But your secular, your Pell Grants, and then they don't want to do community college, which is BS, because in community colleges it's you either get AAS, get recertified, and if you do Pell Grants, we're okay. If you go into a private school, you can. It's at the same level with in-state tuition that would be at your land grants or your regular your land grant colleges, which are owned by we the people. So it still gives the opportunity for the private schools, but we're not just going to start. We're not just paying them anymore. This is ridiculous. Um, and then if you want to go above those 2 years, then it's up to you, the student, to take out the loans or have it paid for. Good news with that is it will force those schools to get even better, because now if you're going to be taking out loans, why am I going to be taking out loans? And I'm not going to. It's going to force private schools that are that are just basically money mills to get better or go out of business. And it'll also now within community college, that really it works, because usually what you would do is say, like, you might SAT, you might not hit really good on your SATs, or your grades are like whatever, or you don't really don't want to go to college, you just want to frickin' trade. You go to the community college because you can get your trade in your welding trades. You can go to get your, if you're going to be a police officer, you go to the police academy, or you go get first in AA in it's policing or whatever. There's different ones, but you can go and get your things, or if, say, for instance, a private school is teaching some course in their way that fits more of your personality. If it's the Pell Grant is the exact same price point as the price point would be per student at the community college. So that parity, it's very important, because you saw what Romney was doing as far as how he's going to screw everybody over. That, oh yeah, that whole thing about retracement, that was totally a vulture capital, Bain capital thing. And once again, Romney's not the money that I'm talking to most of the time. People think about Romney and all this. I am not talking to they are not even on my level, unless their family is hundreds of years old. We're talking about the very long tail of these families that names you never be heard of. Those are the ones that are forgetting that their safety is in the tumble, because that's who Trump wants to be. He wants to be old money. But the thing is, what old money has forgotten in their greed and everything that's going on and their bigotry, he wants to be them. Now he gets power, whoever gets power. The first families that they always kill are the oldest. So keep playing this game of, we'll just keep squeezing the poor, and you keep playing this. If the poor don't flip around and kill you, whoever you put in as a tyrant will. Secularism and capitalism. Secular capitalism is what keeps us safe. When you fuck that up, you shooting yourself in your own foot. And as we know with the Dutch, it's called late stage capital. You maintain maintenance of wealth. It can be done. You still maintain your wealth. Doesn't matter. But if you want to maintain your power, then you have to keep building the country, not just stealing from it. So you guys have gotten fucking lazy and soft-handed. So what I'm looking at is this. The idea for now, this is only a stub. You're going to have to figure out, this is for the finance majors to figure this out. What I'm looking at is, okay, we know that quantitative easing has to happen, which means the stock market price is going to drop. The rich are going to use options and other things to maintain their wealth. How do we use municipal bonds So what the idea is? My main idea is, okay, you have the Treasury, you have both the Treasury, and then you have the Fed. So we're going to say here's 3.5 trillion because Manchin just wants to keep everyone poor because it's relative wealth in his mind. If everyone's way down there, then he's wealthy. Selfish shit. Shouldn't. Forget. I'm getting it personalized. But that's the way his thinking is. That's the pattern of his thinking, which matches the pattern of other persons who have thought the exact same way. So Mansions, and then Cinema, same thing with her patterns. She gave up whoever she was. She was supposed to be more liberal or whatever. She's given up her soul for a little bit, and she expects everyone to forget about her by 2024 and how she screwed them over with prescription drugs and everything else, and how she screwed over everybody in Arizona. So it's assumed she has a nice corporate cushy job, and she's not going to be in the Senate. But if she does run, she needs to be primaried because she was not representing her people. Because all of these programs are, when broken down, are absolutely like, yeah, we want this. This is going to help us out. This is going to make it easier. But the problem is, instead of competing against companies competing against each other for workers, the marketplace, instead they want to pull the marketplace and drive wages down, drive everything down, and you see what's happening. We're becoming poor. We're becoming a third world country. And then the worst part is now we have all these idiots coming up from, I shouldn't say idiots, people who do not realize that if they think they're just going to push their way into the border, it's going to create a crisis, and then it's not going to be good. It's not going to be good at all. Granted, our bigots are the one who created all of these problems, but it does not mean you can just come on in and just fuck shit up. No, 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 no. We can't. No, that behavior scares the living crap out of everyone, and you're like, I don't give a damn about it. Fifth grade, I'm getting you folk to be. Well, then, if you want to be that behavior, we sure as heck don't want you in the country because you don't respecting us, the ones who are actually trying to help you. So back to where I was at with the treasuries. So you create right now the overnight window is about 2.0 is a quarter of a point to about a half a point. So we go 3.5 trillion here treasury. We're going to give you 3.5 trillion at one point at your overnight window. So it's zero point 0.5 point, no more than zero point 0.5. Right now the overnight window is 90 days, which is a bunch of BS. But so we're going to give you this chunk of change. Boom. Now the Treasury will turn that into all types. The Fed will turn that into all types of whatever. So we're guaranteeing cash flows on this, on 3.5 trillion. So we're going to say we're going to duplicate this. We're going to guarantee these cash flows. All right. Now we have this big chunk, and then the Treasury is going to say, okay. The Fed's going to say, okay, here on paper is this 3.5 trillion. Now, most people will be like, okay, we got this big chunk of change. We've borrowed from the Fed. Then we're going to now what we're then going to do, and this is where it gets a little complicated, and I need the FUDs, the finance FUDs, to come up with an idea with it. Is because we can say now we can do different types of bonds, municipal bonds. Say, for instance, the one that keeps coming to my mind is easiest to do is on property taxes. Instead of paying property taxes, you're still going to pay property taxes, but instead of paying property taxes, you're giving an option to opt in to basically buy a municipal bond, because that's wealth preservation. The main thing with these is when you're rich, it's mostly about wealth preservation. Because once again, now once you have a piece of paper, you can turn that piece of paper into other types of pieces of paper because you're technically own something. So you're buying. So we'll sell the bond to create a security, and so they're paying, even though they're paying taxes to buy the bond. The capital they're getting, the cash flows they're getting on it is only 0.05%. on that bond, but they can take that bond and turn it into other capital. And you keep doing that, especially, and then you do it also up on larger treasuries. Now, I know this is pretty much a stub. It's not really totally thought out as far as the numbers and all that. It's one of the problems I was dealing with. But the idea is, instead of taking the 3.5 trillion, or I'm not even going to say Manch's number because it's a bunch of BS, even though that's probably what's going to end up happening. And it's how terrible how somebody who purposely screws over his own people then uses Fox News to keep them hammered and then keeps them poor and miserable on purpose instead of giving them help to build and create, because people want to work. It's not about give people don't want people most people don't really want charity, and that's why they love doing that whole see the niggers are they're taking your money, see because they're picking their pockets. And that's not just and it's bigots in general. The bigots could be black, or the bigot could be African American black, or it could be any person. A bigot is a bigot regardless of what their melanin rate is. But the main thing is you create these bonds and you use these bonds because it's the whole thing of creating capital preservation. And so at the end, and 10 years, so at the end of 10 years, the bond matures, but then you can either say it just disappears or you just roll it over or whatever. There's multiple ways, and now the uber rich are always going to try to figure out how to get all the cash back into their pockets. Now, you're using the bonds to create capital to fund these programs, and it's easier to do on the lower end because then because at point over here in the treasury you've guaranteed a cash flow, but you also have this huge chunk of change, and then you use other bonds to guarantee other cash flows on top of it. And these are all tax deferred or tax free. So it's tax free growth. As money is being removed through quantitative easing, because there's way too much cash flowing in the world right now, we're going to get serious inflation if we don't if the Fed doesn't start pulling quantitative easing, because and start pulling money out of the money supply. But the uber rich are all freaked out because they've been just gurgling off the freaking false capital that split the financial markets from Main Street, or Wall Street from Main Street. What we're trying to do now is push back Wall Street and Main Street. You want to grow Wall Street, you need to grow Main Street as well. And to be honest with you, they hate that because that means workers will actually have value, and they really don't want you to have value. Because if you noticed, every 10 years, as soon as you build up something, they crash the economy, grab everything, and they do it all over again. That was the insight of Marx. Whether the whole workers unite thing, I'm not really whatever, but that was the insight of Marx. The cyclical nature of the markets means they crash it, or so people run to a new speculation, get rich quick, it gets oversold, and then it crashes. Everyone takes their money, and so they keep doing that over and over and over again, and they're running out of things because they're not putting money in to people creating new products and services, because their ego greed is too worried about, oh, those workers. Poor people do not when you have a whole populace that's poor, you become less safe. You might, and the thing is, telling that to a very narcissistic or psychopathic person, they don't care because it's relative. It's when you see European Americans freaking out. It's relative poverty, relative wealth that matters. That person's that, so I'm supposed to be relatively wealthier than them, as opposed to, and that's how they know who they are, because it's an externalized self. So everything Manchin's doing is crap. Everything Manchin Cinema is crap, but that's all right, because here's another thing that's going to we're going to go into a more in-depth, I think, on the next time, is this. All of those senators and all of those representatives that voted or did not vote to impeach the president are in contempt of the Constitution. And by the Constitution, even if it's only applied to, quote, European Americans or, quote, white people, because remember, we play it on their bigotry, playing on some person's bigotry, they are in contempt of the Constitution and they can no longer hold office. At that point, if it is proven, right now, Bannon, by invoking executive privilege, has that's an implied statement, which is a logical statement, stated he was working in agency for the president. So anyone who felt like as if they were working on the orders or instructions of Steve Bannon that touch foot onto the Senate or the House floor is also in agency to the president or the former president. Therefore, the thing about the Constitution, it is the most wonderful double bind, because narcissistic people love their double binds, but it is the most wonderful double bind. Senators and representatives do not have a choice. If a person or a group of persons, they are now in agency to the president and are in contempt of the Constitution because they have no choice. They have to say, you are on the Senate floor, we did not give you permission, you are in contempt of Congress. By the Constitution, we have to remove you from office. By not removing the president from office, they remove themselves from office. So all the Democrats, if they really have the backbone, have to do is impeach those persons, because Trump's all safe. Now, me saying this, Trump's going to start trying to bring everybody in because they're going to run, because that's what narcissists do. They get you to go against your own selfish best interest, and then when you've done that, and then you're scared, then everyone has to run together, and then you go against your selfish best interest again. This is the same thing that's happened to Holly Adams and everything else via the trauma bond. And that's so Mitch McConnell. So once they're impeached, technically, don't have to get rid of the filibuster because they're not there. They've been removed from office by the U.S. Constitution, because by the U.S. Constitution, those who did vote to impeach have no choice but to remove them from office. So that's why it is you put pressure on McConnell. He's like, it's you or Trump. Do you want your power, or are you going to take him out? You're going to go down with his ship or not? Because you really don't care about the Constitution. You really don't care about your oath of office. And by the way, once again, what did we get out of your wife rooting around in our transportation systems? What was the outputs, positive outputs for us in trade? Obviously, it must not be very good, because we're having all these backlogs. Two, Ms. Boebert, who is my representative, I need you to quit screaming and yakking, and I need to understand, what are you doing to bring manufacturing back to the western slope of Colorado? And also, on those five wells are capital heavy up front, and it's just cash flows on the back end. What was our cash flows going to be on that? And don't say jobs, because most of the jobs are only at the very beginning, in the very first 6 or 7 months of building the well. So we needed, and so our roads are going to be destroyed and everything else. What did we get? What's our tax cut? What's our cut on the western slope for those wells? Because we know you're getting a cut. Where's our cut? How is it going to help to affect our schools? How is it going to make sure our water's clean? How have you done anything to make sure that, because we get all the snowpack and we have all of these aqueducts through the mountains, how are we doing good water conservation? What are you doing with climate change? Because it used to be years ago, you can hike the north faces of most of the slopes midwinter and go and get some fresh tracks. It's not as common. That's BS. What are you doing? Because that's going to also affect our ski industry. What are you doing, which is also mostly in your district? What are you doing to help the Western Slope instead of sitting there beating your chest and talking a bunch of crap? Anyways, I'm done. I wish you all have a great day.